Through the Leadership Lens is sponsored by Irish Propane Corporation, serving Western and Central New York. For all your residential and commercial propane needs, choose Irish Propane. Irish Propane is a locally operated, New York State certified, woman-owned business. For more information, visit irishpropane.com. Irish Propane delivers peace of mind.
Hello and welcome to another Through the Leadership Lens, a podcast presented by the Women in Propane Council. I am Freddie Riddler.
And I'm Bridget Kidd, and today we are so excited. We have Jennifer Jackson here from AmeriGas, who holds three very interesting, I'm sure many more, but three very interesting positions in the industry. At AmeriGas, she's the Director of Territory Operations. But then with the Women in Propane Council, Jennifer, you're the immediate past chair, as well as the disc trainer. So you have a lot to offer, and I'm so excited about where this conversation is headed in title alone. So if you could kick us off, as you know, we talk about leadership on this podcast. If you could kick us off, will you tell us a little bit about what you do, maybe in each of these roles, but then also what does leadership mean to you?
Okay, well, that's kind of a big question. As a director of territory operations, so essentially we have designated areas. There are 12 regions throughout AmeriGas across our country and our footprint. I have one of those regions, which is a very large portion of the Midwest. Everything from North Dakota and Minnesota, Wisconsin, all the way down to Kentucky, Southern Illinois, Iowa. It's a lot of area, a lot of people. Probably the biggest footprint I've ever had. But essentially, we lead operations. We lead the productivity of the teams in the field that are out delivering and providing service, and we're leading the management team that are running those operations. So that's in a nutshell what I do at AmeriGas. For Women in Propane as immediate past chair, obviously I was the chair for the last 3 years. So this past January, I stepped into the immediate past chair role. We're very excited about the new leadership that has come in. And essentially, it's a support role. I'm here to support the new leadership, our wonderful new chair, Paula Summers, and our vice chair, Bridget Pirano. I'm training on the Disc on the Road, our leadership program that has behavioral assessments. And we've been doing that for 5 years now, I believe. And I'm also the liaison for the mentorship program, helping the chair with that as well. So a lot of different things, but all trying to do wonderful things for the industry, whether it be through mentoring or education, leadership training, or guidance in general.
So it's like you have the role of all leadership, which is funny to listen because our podcast is about leadership, and you talk about leadership at your work. You have leadership of Women in Propane. You do the disc training. You were the chair of the Women in Propane. I just out of curiosity, how do you balance all of that? And then you have your work life, your home life. I mean, it seems like you're just spread across everywhere. Like, Jennifer, tell us more, lead us, train us, help us. Then you go home and it's like, oh, wow, now what? Like, tell us about how you balance everything.
I love to work. I love to work. People always say, what are your hobbies? I don't have hobbies. I love to work. I have been obsessed with propane since I found this industry. It's been very, very difficult for me to do anything else. I did try it at one point in time and I came right back. So it's something that's almost obsessive to me. If I don't have my main job, I want to help others in the industry. And the NPGA is honestly, I'm passionate about it because it was the first thing that made me feel like the industry was a family, right? I mean, there are a lot of us that have worked for a lot of different companies and we've moved around a little bit, but the relationships you build, you realize very quickly that it's industry related, it's not company related. And no matter where you are or where you're moving in your career, you have this family that is just very, very powerful to me. And it's not something I think a lot of other industries offer. So it's very enticing. But you ask what leadership means to me, and I think leadership in my mind has changed over the years as I've gotten older, and right now it's very much about bringing people up, those that are under your leadership, bringing them up, raising them up, and the other thing is trust and respect. There has to be a big mutual trust and respect, and I think integrity is a big part of that. People talk about leadership all the time, but just because you're a leader doesn't make you a good leader. There are just as many bad leaders as there are good leaders. So I think that defining person for good leadership is all about having that integrity, that you can trust what they tell you, can trust the guidance they're giving you, and you can trust that they're being authentic with their leadership. And I think that's important.
What about as you have kind of your perspective maybe has changed on leadership and maybe your positions in leadership roles? Is there somebody who sticks out to you that you modeled, or, there were competencies that they had that you thought, gosh, I really want to emulate that at some point?
So many. I've had so many great mentors and examples in this industry. I really have. One of my favorites is obviously Paige Odell. She was my first mentor through the Mentor Exchange, and the reason that I came to AmeriGas. Wonderful, wonderful mentor and an example, not only as a leader, but as a woman that was in this industry and doing very well and had the same start that I did, essentially starting from the bottom and kind of working your way up. But George Kolarudis was a great mentor to me. I worked for him at Thompson Gas. He was a wonderful, wonderful mentor that gave me a lot of education and helped me change the way that I led. I think my leadership started out very selfish in a way, and I hate to say it that way, but it's true. It was very self-serving. My leadership was all about my challenges, hitting my numbers, hitting my goals, and demonstrating that my team was going to be the best out of all the teams. And I think the more mentors that I had leading me and guiding me, the more I realized that leadership is so much more about serving others. And it changed me. It changed how I defined how well I was doing. I am much more now about what I have done for my team. When I grade my leadership over the last year, I think about what have I done for them? What have I contributed to their career, to their life? What purpose have I served? And looking at it from that point of view rather than what I did, essentially, for myself.
That's great. So, Jennifer, can we talk a little bit about your involvement in Women in Propane, since this is a podcast presented by the Women Propane Council, and then also tell us why you wanted to be the chair. Like, what went through your mind? What brought you to that level of saying this is such a great organization, and I want to be the chair. I want to be in that position. I want to kind of guide this organization for the next few years. And then after that, tell us a little bit about the DISC program so our viewers that are watching this kind of understand what that is and what all is involved with that.
Okay. So Women in Propane, the mentor I mentioned, George Kolarudis at Thompson, was actually the one that introduced me to Women in Propane and got me involved. He came back from an NPGA meeting and told several of us leaders in his organization that he had heard about this organization, Women in Propane, and he felt strongly that we should be involved. So he invited us to a meeting, and we sat in, and that was when they kicked off the mentor program, the knowledge exchange. And we were just enthralled that the industry was offering something to include us, essentially, because before that you didn't really feel included, right? We were extra in the room. I was mistaken for somebody's wife or girlfriend on several occasions. So it was nice that there was something that was bringing us in and making this industry even more inclusive for us. And the programs they were offering seemed pivotal to really help your career. So I started out in my first conversation with Nancy Coop. She offered me the position of chair of the Knowledge Exchange. So that was how I got started with Women in Propane. I was chairing the Knowledge Exchange and running the mentorship program. And then I got interested in the DISC. I did the DISC training and was very, very interested in helping lead that and make sure that we were offering it to everyone. So I went to Buffalo and got trained as a certified DISC trainer and came back, and we kicked off DISC on the road. Myself, Melissa Lord, and Lori Irish Jones together did that so that we could offer it to companies and to other state associations that wanted to offer that training. And as we moved through these programs, there was just a big opportunity to change what Women in Propane was offering. One, we were trying to fix the message that it was just for women. A lot of the things we were doing, we wanted to make sure that they understand that while, yes, we are women that are collaborating together to offer great things to the industry, that we are offering them to everyone. We are offering them to everyone in this industry. and being inclusive in that way. So that was a big message we needed to change. And, the other thing was that we wanted to make it valuable. We wanted to make it mean something that you were a member of Women in Propane. And we wanted your company to get something out of that and it to be tangible. So we worked really hard when they asked me to come up as chair and join as leadership. That was our big initiative, was how are we going to pivot this, especially with COVID on the horizon at the time that I was coming in as chair, to offer more online, offer more to those that aren't traveling to these expos, that aren't coming to the BOD meetings. And what are we going to offer that's tangible, that's of quality, and that we can say, we're proud to get this out there, and how can we expand on that? And that's really where we focused all of our efforts over the last 3 years, with our webinar series, with our state association ambassadors, and obviously with our wonderful podcast, which has been a huge hit. Just so many different things that we've tried to do to build value, essentially.
That's a lot of opportunities that have been created through the Women in Propane. And I think it's an avenue that people can take in the industry to refine networking and refine their skill sets. Mm-hmm. But outside of the Women in Propane, what do you do to kind of stay on top of your leadership skills?
I read a lot of different books. I take a lot of insight into different books as to different perspectives. That's big for me, is different perspectives. If you keep reading from the same author, it doesn't change your perspective. And I've learned that over the years. So I try to differ the authors that I'm reading and the point of view that I'm reading from. One of the most recent ones I'm reading right now with my team is Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. And we're doing the workbook together as a project throughout this year for their leadership development and mine. I feel like it's important to have kind of a different path and a different goal every year for yourself, or a new challenge to meet. I'm big on challenging myself. I want to feel like I've accomplished something better this year than I did last year. And I think if I do the same for my team, it just builds on what you're taking pride in and what you're proud of.
That's great.
Yeah, and I'm writing things down as you do these podcasts. I love to hear all these stories and the things you're involved in. And you said, never read the same author because you never get another perspective. That's music to me. Like, I always have to change my artist because it sets the mood, right? And if you constantly listen to the same type of music, that kind of evolves around you, and that's your mood all the time. So everyone's like, what kind of music do you listen to? And I always say everything. It's just whatever mood I'm in. So it's kind of fun to hear that about books. So, you're talking about, I'm going to go back to the disc training a little bit. And you came into this role, and actually the chair, I believe, during COVID. That's always fun not fun, I shouldn't say that, but it's always interesting to hear that timeline in someone's story. Because up until COVID, everyone was in person. Like you said, if you wanted training, I can come to your office. You could come to the board of directors meeting. We can do these different trade shows. Mm-hmm. You came in as the chair, and it's like, just like that, everyone's remote. Yep. I mean, that had to be challenging. That had to be challenging to say, let's keep this organization going. Let's keep the Women in Propane going. Let's keep the involvement going. Mm-hmm. I know it's a different time that we're living, but we still have to be engaged with everyone in the industry. Tell us a little bit about that time in your life during COVID where you had to change the perspective of, now we have to reach all of them virtually, offer these types of trainings.
Yeah, it was, I think everybody can relate to that, because I think before COVID, nobody knew what Zoom was. Like, we all had conference call lines that we were on, I can't remember the last time I was on a conference call that didn't include video.
Right.
But I always say that. I'm like, can we just go back to an old school phone call?
So, and it is different because now, even working from home, you have to be, quote unquote, on all the time. Mm-hmm. And really in front and center with everybody that you're speaking to. So it is a different shift. It's a different kind of work ethic that you had to shift into. But as we were, kind of putting our plan together, and that's how we started. We were like, okay, we're all stuck at home, quarantined. We the first thing we did was put a regular schedule on the books of these Zoom meetings, of meeting frequently to talk about what we were doing, what we had going on, and what we were accomplishing each month as it went by. and obviously expos stopped, all of our in-person meetings stopped. So that gave us time to do things that we hadn't had time to do before, which was really interesting. Our website we didn't really have one before COVID. We had a small page on the NPGA site where we weren't able to save anything or put anything of content. So we took a whole year and created a whole new website, womeninpropane.org, where we could save our webinars. So if you couldn't attend live to the webinar series, you could go back as a member and watch it off the website. Um, the podcasts, linking those to our website, having information about the Knowledge Exchange where you could go get more information and learn about the events we had going on at all the different places. So just building that website and that information center for us was really, really important. And that really helped with membership as well. For people to easily be able to go and sign up to get that newsletter every month in their email, telling them what we had going on and what the updates were. Trying to decide, obviously we were in a world where we had to have more online content. So it was okay, webinars. What kind of webinars are we going to do? What kind of topics are we going to do? What's important right now? What's relevant? And how are we going to find the right people that we're going to endorse to do these? And what does our budget look like? I mean, there was so much collaboration that had to go on to put all this together as we move forward. But I'd be lying if I didn't say we were so excited when we had that expo after everybody came out of quarantine. Just to come out from behind the camera and get to see everybody in person and spend time was so great. But it doesn't take away from all the work we did when we were sitting at home and building up to where we could come out guns blazing, as powerful as we possibly could be with what we were offering. For sure.
What about, I want to shift kind of totally away from all of this and think, as you look at yourself as a leader, right? And maybe some of your examples could be from this experience in Women in Propane and the shifts in COVID. But we talk a lot about how there's risk associated with leadership. And that risk may be in the form of vulnerability. It may be in the form of a business decision. And so you've talked about how you're enhancing your skills and you're building this network to maybe mitigate some of that risk. But has there been a time that you can think of where you had to take a risk and you had to own it, and maybe it went well and maybe it didn't go well, but where you thought, this is, as a leader, I have to take this risk? Do you have anything like that comes to mind?
So before I got into propane, I had some limited management leadership positions in other industries that was kind of scattered. I was a little lost before I got into propane, quite frankly, for several years. And I started in this industry as a customer service rep that worked up through different positions as I became more and more educated on the industry. The first management role that I had was different in the way that it was based on an acquisition. And that was much different. I'm sure everybody knows that change management is one of the hardest things to come in and do. When you have a large group of employees, and this was over, I think, 6 or 7 districts in Eastern North Carolina, when you have a lot of employees that identify with a company name that is being taken away. They identify with a culture that is being taken away. They had no say in the company they're being sold to, and they had no say in this transition happening to them. And you have to come in as a leader and get them on board, essentially. Get them excited about the new company, get them changed in the mindset of how things are going to run, and get them proud to work there and committed to it. And that was probably one of the biggest, riskiest. I was terrified. It wasn't something I had ever done before. And I knew it was going to be a huge challenge for me. And I knew that as my first opportunity in management in this industry, that if it didn't go well, it might be the end of my career in this industry. And it was really important that I succeeded in this role. So that was probably, in my mind, the biggest risk that I ever took was embracing that and saying, yep, I will take it. I will take all these districts. I will go in and do
I'll
this,
do it.
and I'll figure it out, and it's going to be awesome. And it was great.
We talk, if I can ask one thing off of that, and I think a lot of women feel this way, having never been in the shoes of a man. I don't know if it's a similar experience. But we talk a lot, with friends of mine and peers and the people on my team this notion of fake it till you make it, or imposter syndrome, and oh gosh, when is somebody going to realize, I shouldn't be doing this, when you should, and you have every bit of skill and will and drive to do it. Is that something you've ever struggled with? And what do you do if so?
I don't believe in fake it till you make it. That whole phrase drives me crazy.
Yeah.
And only because I am so hardcore about being authentic, right? I am much more of the style that would come in and be honest with the employees and say, look, this is my first run at managing an operation this size.
Yep.
I don't really know what I'm doing, but I will be honest with you on everything coming down and what the expectation is and how we're going to do it and why it benefits you. And that's all I can do, is be authentic with you on that, to be real, so that you trust me, so that you understand why we're doing what we're doing and you can feel good about it. I feel like employees seeing your vulnerability and seeing that you have anxiety too, that you have fears, that you have doubts, makes it more relatable, and it builds trust there. Not only trust in you, but trust that they can feel okay to feel that way as well, without fearing that it's going to change your opinion of them. I want my employees, my leaders, to feel like they can show me their anxiety, they can show me their fears, and that's not going to derail their career, because they've seen mine. Right.
And I think that's new, right? To be okay with that vulnerability and be okay with the confidence in that, right? Because before, I mean, not too distant past, that wasn't as commonly accepted in many businesses, right? Or certainly not in leadership roles. You had to own it and hope for the best, almost.
I almost feel like that is one of the things that made the knowledge exchange so popular coming out the gate, because that it gave you that. Nobody wants to go to their own boss and talk about their insecurities and what they're afraid of in their career path. But if you can talk to someone with experience in the industry that has no relation to your company or your job, that it takes away all that fear, all that anxiety. You can be completely open, you can be honest, and you're ready for that feedback because it's not detrimental and you don't have that fear. And there's something that is game changing about that when you're getting mentored, having that no holds barred. Let me tell you what I'm thinking and what I want to do and what I'm afraid of, and you be honest with me, and I'm ready to hear that, and I don't have any fear that is impacting my current position or my current career path.
Yeah, it's there's a song called "It's Okay to Be Okay," and that's what it is. It's your that's why you have so many hats, Jennifer, is because you're honest and you say, you know what, why not? I'll give it a try. I might not know what this new role is going to entail, but I will do it to my best of abilities. And it's funny because, like, even here at RCC, you can see people that grow, that they're not experts at that role or that project, but they're honest. And they'll say, I don't know enough yet, but I will try and I will make it work. And I think that happens a lot in the industry. And you're right. We talk to all these second, third, fourth generation ownerships of all these different propane companies, and they would rather talk to someone other than their parents about insecurities. And that's a great plug for the mentorship program. And I always try to promote that because it's such a huge impact for these young owners to have somewhere to reach out to and talk to someone. So I'm glad you brought that up again, because that's a powerful message that we want to get through on this podcast. Is there's resources out there, and if you don't know about them, reach out to Jennifer. She'll get all that information for you. But let's talk a little bit about outside of Women in Propane, outside of AmeriGas. What type of leadership skills do you bring for your community or your family or those around you?
So in addition, I'm on the board for the HOA that I live in, helping to lead the neighborhood that I participate in. I'm a volunteer with our County Humane Society. I do a lot of volunteer work with them. I have a big soft spot for animals.
Good for you.
I love animals more than I do people.
That comes up quite a bit at these podcasts.
Vulnerability and the love of animals are two things that
It is, and I'm a single mom. I have a beautiful, beautiful daughter that is graduating high school this year. So a lot of my free time in our community is out doing things with her and making sure that she's participating in things. Not having siblings, I think that was big for me. Trying to raise her to be involved in things, to get out and learn leadership skills as well, without trying to push her guidance in one way or another. It's very difficult, as controlling as I am, not to do that. That was another skill set all in of itself.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so and like it is a lot, but like I said, it's I like being involved, and I do like people in general. I like learning about different styles, learning about different people's needs, and I like feeling like I've accomplished something at the end of the day. So whether that's helping somebody else or volunteering my time, it's just always nice to give back in some way.
Mm-hmm. What would you say to somebody who's coming into the industry? Obviously, getting involved in the women in propane is key. But what would you say to somebody who's kind of starting their career or maybe changing their career, as, maybe some advice or way to build some confidence in what they're doing?
Well, congrats, you're now a hostage. No, I was kidding. But I've always told people, once you come into propane, it is hard to leave. It's very hard to leave. It gets in your blood. And one of the most exciting things about our industry is when people think about propane, it's not just delivery drivers, it's not just service techs. There are a plethora of positions and career paths that you can pursue, whether it's in IT or marketing or sales, leadership, whether it be on a safety side or an operational side. Especially with all the different companies that we have, we are innovating constantly. The laws are changing constantly, and having people that want to continue to evolve their career, there are so many different paths you can take. There isn't just one for anybody. And you can pivot and you can change. And maybe you start out on one path and you decide to go in a totally different direction halfway through. But it's just a very, very successful industry it's clean. You can feel good about it at the end of the day. It's important to our environment. It's important to the world. It's, to me, just a really, really feel good industry. And again, the family, I always go back to that. You have just entered into an industry where you will network and you will make friendships and relationships that will last your entire life. And even when those people, if somebody were to retire, leave the industry, you don't forget those people, and you don't lose those contacts. They're with you always. And you can't ask for a better support system as you go through life, as you go through your career and you make changes. You can't ask. To me, this is like church, right? Everybody wants their church family. They want that group that's part of their community. To me, MPGA is like my church. It's my community. It's my family, honestly.
So the advice is, and have fun. Like, I heard a lot of great things.
The advice would be just raise your hand and speak up and learn as much as you possibly can. And that's what I tell everybody that comes in is learn as much as you can. Don't get short-sighted on what your options are or what the availability are. And maybe it's limited at this company, and that's why there are so many companies, and that's why so many of us have made changes, and that's part of that growth and that evolution, is people coming in and finding where they fit. But I think as long as you're willing to learn as much as you can and raise your hand and speak up and be an active participant, sky's the limit for whatever you
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
Yeah.
Well, I think that was a great synopsis, Freddie. I don't know.
I do too. I don't even know how to summarize all that. That's really good. That was really good, Jennifer. And I think that's the key message. Is we ask that with a lot of our different guests. Right. And it comes down to family. If I had to pick one word of what people's perspective of the propane industry, it's family. And you're absolutely right. You make all sorts of long-term friendships, and it's even through these podcasts. I finally met Bridget a few weeks ago at the board of directors meeting, and it was weird being in person with her because we've only talked through podcasts. But it's like family. And I even talk, even when I'm at home talking to my family, I talk about Bridget a lot and doing these podcasts and the different guests we get to meet. And it's a really inspiration I hope, for all of our viewers to not only just listen, watch this, but also be part of this family, because they are. That's what we're trying to do is bringing everyone into these conversations. So
yeah,
we talked.
I think there's also. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, go ahead. Go ahead,
Well, I
Bridget.
was just going to say the one thing that also strikes through what you've been saying, Jennifer, for me is that there's opportunity, right? And there's opportunity both in your career advancement, in your skill development, in your professional development, your personal development, but also as we look at the industry itself, right? There's innovation constantly happening. There's innovation through the operations of individual companies. There's innovation in the fuel itself,
Mhm.
right? And so if you're willing, like you're saying, to learn and to pivot and to take risks,
Mhm.
you could start in one place and end up in some place where there's technology improvements and
Mhm.
communications improvements, and that's what's exciting to me is that there is nothing about this industry that is stagnant,
Mm-mm.
and it's kind of the world is yours if you're willing to embrace it.
And I think that's a really important fact for most people to understand, especially if you're a first time leader or coming up new in that arena, is that you can't sit back and wait for other people to bring opportunities to you. Don't wait for
Right.
someone else to come to you wanting to help your career.
Hmm.
You have to have those conversations with your direct supervisor, with your team. What do you want? What are you working
Hmm.
towards? What are your goals? What do you aspire to? How can they help you get there? If you're not having those
Hmm.
conversations, that could be one of the reasons why you're stalled.
Right.
You
Right.
can't depend on other people to invest in your career on a regular basis. You have to show that you're invested in it first.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, we talk about that on my team a lot about whether it's your own development or how you participate on our team more broadly is you can't meet someone halfway. You can't. You got to go 55% because that delta between just what you're supposed to do and what you want or what you can do to serve makes all the difference in both accomplishing your individual goals but also advancing professionally.
Great. I loved it. That was a great conversation. Should we move to the next round, Bridget? I think you're
Wow,
ready
this
for
is where it
that.
gets fun. Not the
Yeah,
music.
that was, thank you, Jennifer. Thank you for sharing the story and your leadership skills
Yeah.
and great information. It's always fun to hear that. But now it's time for the whip round, the women in propane round, but whip, get it? Anyways, we're going to ask a bunch of questions, answer them. They're fun,
Okay.
relaxing. You don't have all these questions from what they passed to you. Bridget and I kind of added to this list. So we're sorry, but there's a few of them that you probably didn't prep for. So,
Okay.
Bridget, I'll kick it over to you.
All right. So here is my favorite one that I just think is so interesting. What do you keep in the trunk of your car?
Well, I drive a big pickup truck, so I don't really have a trunk of my car.
Okay. Okay.
But in the back seat, I keep an umbrella and an ice scraper, and that's about it because I'm super OCD about my truck being clean all the time. So
That
yes,
is
if I'm ever
telling. That's
stuck on
good.
the side of the road and stranded, I'm probably not off well.
An umbrella and ice scraper. So that's the seasons you live in, rain and
Mhm.
ice.
Pretty much all I got. Yeah.
That's fun. So, Jennifer, you talk about reading books. So, if you wrote a book about your career, what would the title be?
Um. Oh. It shouldn't take you this many times. No.
That's great. That's great.
that yeah. I feel like I had to do do overs a few times too many. Um, but it's been fun. I think propane was really when my career picked up and took a more positive turn from the years I was a little lost before that. So um, yeah, I think I would have liked to have learned a little faster. So that would probably be, like I said, my title. It shouldn't have taken me this many times.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
but it
great
taught you
though. I think that's
patience
honest.
and it opened up so much opportunity to learn.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
think that's a perfect title, and anyone that heard or seen that book title should pick it up and read it because
Mhm.
look where you're at today. I mean,
Yeah, right.
yep,
Right.
Right.
good for you.
All right. If you had a superpower, what would it be?
Oh, if I had a superpower, I think it would be to read minds. Honestly, I think that's the one thing I struggle with the most is studying behavior because I don't know what people are thinking, and that to me, it's the most powerful knowledge you can have to make decisions is to know what that awareness of those around you and what they're thinking and how they're feeling. So I think that would probably be the best superpower to have is to always know that to have that.
A double-edged sword, though, right?
Oh yes, very much so. I'd probably be an emotional mess if I had it.
Let's say how uncomfortable would it be to have a conversation with Jennifer knowing she can read your mind?
There would be no conversation. I'd be running in the other. Oh man, you'd be a millionaire if at a minimum.
Didn't say it was healthy.
That's fun. So here's another one for you. Describe yourself in one word.
Complicated. That or high maintenance. If it's hyphenated, is that one word? Very high maintenance.
That's great. That's one of my favorite lines from a movie. Are you guys familiar with When Harry Met Sally?
Yes.
Are you low maintenance or high maintenance? The worst kind. You're high maintenance, but you think you're low maintenance.
I'm very much aware that I'm high maintenance.
That's great. Okay, I am going to ask, when it's come up, I think a little bit. What do you wish you would have known when you were 16 years old that you know now? This always ties in with the best advice I've ever gotten, and that is that when what somebody says doesn't match up with their behavior, you need to go with the behavior because behavior doesn't lie. People do all the time for many different reasons. When I was younger, I wish I had learned that sooner. I wish I had learned that whenever you're in doubt, if you pay attention to people's behavior, they're telling you who they are, they're showing you who they are. You shouldn't ask them to continue to tell you and show you over and over again if you're paying attention. I think as children, we want to believe the best in people, so we tend to want to give people the benefit of the doubt and believe them regardless of all the behavioral red flags that are telling you something else. And that's probably been one of the biggest lessons in my life is learning to pay attention to people's behavior as well as my own, more so than what people are saying to me. That's
I like that. Good advice and great advice for your 16-year-old self. And having, you said, a daughter who's graduating this year. I mean, that's the advice that she needs, and all these graduating students this year is that single sentence you just said of looking at their behavior and trusting that behavior. So hopefully other people that are listening to this can take that advice and pass that on.
It's helpful in all relationships, and I really believe that, whether you're looking at friendships or coworkers or romantic relationships or even mentors. When you're paying attention to someone's behavior and making mental notes and really letting that sink in, it changes things, and it helps develop you into understanding this other person as well as knowing the boundaries and limits of that relationship.
Absolutely.
Sure. Thank you. So you're an animal lover. So what is your favorite animal and why?
I have two little dogs that are Mikis. They are 3.5 pounds of pure love. And they are impossible to keep a negative attitude around. It's why I love them so much. It doesn't matter how stressed out or angry or sad you get. Take 2 seconds and look at this small little face that is looking at you and just wants to play, and you can't help but smile, and the mood lightens, and you just can't stay mad. You can't stay in a bad mood. They're walking little mood boosters. That's what I call them. Little mood boosters.
And what are their names?
Willow and Daisy.
Oh, nice.
Are my two little monsters that are, just like I said, absolute pure love.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I think I might have saw one of Bridget's pure loves jump up on the couch behind her.
She's still there, sound asleep.
I had to put mine up in a room because all it would take was a UPS guy to go by and that whole background noise, that it would have been a nightmare. So yes, I had to put them up for the call.
Yeah, I took a risk today, and they're both sleeping in here, of course.
Yeah.
All right. Well, speaking of mood boosters, I'll have my last question. What's your ideal vacation?
I do love to vacation. So it's places I've been. I'm in love with the Caribbean. I do love to go there, but my ideal vacation that I have never done is Ireland. I want to go to Ireland very, very much so. I would love to go spend 2 weeks just going around
Yeah.
Ireland and staying in castles and learning about their history and exploring a country that I've never been to.
Oh, I love that. Great.
Yeah.
Sounds like a great time. Maybe all three of us should go there to Ireland together.
2024, man, it's a plan. I've got it all.
I'm in.
I've got it all mapped out. 2024, I'm going to Ireland. That's gonna be
awesome.
I may not come back.
No, that's the problem. That's always the problem with vacation.
Yes. But then you get to plan. I like going somewhere new. I like going somewhere I haven't been. It's always great when you find a place that you love, but there are so many other great places that I want to travel to and visit. And with my daughter graduating this spring, I'm about to be an empty nester. So it's like sky's the limit on all this vacation time and what I'm going to do with it and where I'm going to go.
Yeah.
So it's kind of open that up a little bit.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Go enjoy it.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, Jennifer, thank you for being on the podcast. I think we're going to wrap it up here. Any last comments to our viewers who are listening to this podcast?
No, I thank all the support for Women in Propane, the support for this podcast, which I think is fantastic. Myself, I've gotten to learn about so many great leaders in the industry that I didn't know before just by getting involved and watching your podcast. So I appreciate the work you guys put into this and contributing to Women in Propane and what we're offering. I appreciate the wonderful insight and the topics that you cover. And I'm excited for what else we have to present to the industry over the next 2 years of new leadership coming in. I'm excited to see what we come up with and what we roll out, because it is the best industry in the world to work in. I truly believe that.
That's great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
This has been another episode of Through the Leadership Lens, presented by Women in Propane. Be sure to subscribe, download, and share with a friend. To learn more about Women in Propane, visit us on Facebook, Instagram, or online at www.womeninpropane.org. I'm Freddie Riddler.
And I'm Bridget Kidd. Thanks for listening. Until next time.